Gators Breakdown, the Gators fan podcast, because there's never a dull moment in Gator Nation.
The Gators Breakdown podcast is ready to go. I'm your host, David Waters, and you can find me on Twitter at GatorDave_SEC. And going to change it up a little bit this week. I had planned originally to do just one episode with this week's topics, and just going to release one early a little bit. Interviewed Ciatrick Fason, former Gator great running back. And the interview was pretty lengthy and a lot of good info out there. So I wanted to go ahead and get it out to the Gators Breakdown listeners there. We'll still do another episode this week previewing the NFL draft with the guys at Sports Illustrated All Gators. We'll get that, but wanted to go ahead and get the Ciatrick Fason interview out there. Just, right now everybody just kind of wants to have something else to think about and want a little bit of a release, a little bit of a distraction out there. So why not 2 episodes this week? It was a great interview with Ciatrick Fason and talking about his time at Florida, the transition from Spurrier to Zook, from the transition from Zook to Meyer, what went down and why he declared early and decided to go to the NFL after a conversation with Urban Meyer. So a lot there to discuss. Also the Chris Leak, who he played with a bit there at Florida. So really, really good insight from Ciatrick Fason. Really good interview. Wanted to go ahead and get it out there for you Gators Breakdown listeners. Before we get to the interview, remember you can find Gators Breakdown at news4jax.com/Gators Breakdown. All the Gators Breakdown episodes there, as well as your favorite podcast platform, Google Play, Spotify, Apple Podcast, all that good stuff. That's where you can find Gators Breakdown. And don't forget to go follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Gators Breakdown. Gator great running back Ciatrick Fason joining us here on Gators Breakdown. Ciatrick, I can't thank you enough. And give our listeners an update on what you've been up to since your playing days. Of course, played at Florida, went on to the NFL. What are you doing these days?
Right now I'm training. I started a training business called Star Rated Athletes back in 2010, and back in 2012 I also started a youth athletic association called Star Rated Athletic Association. We consist of football and basketball, ages 5 through 14, and I've been coaching. I was coaching at Fletcher High School the last 3 years. Now that I moved on to First Coast High School for an opportunity to be a head coach one day, and just helping kids get recruited. And that's pretty much my life in a box right now.
I'm glad you brought up recruiting a bit. Take us back a little bit before you had made the decision to go to Florida and your recruiting story, of course. How long did you know you wanted to go to Florida? You, of course, playing in Jacksonville, Gator-heavy country, area there, a lot of Gator fans. Was the recruiting process difficult? Did you know you wanted to go to Florida for a long time? Did you have a hard time making the decision to go to Florida? Take us back a bit.
Well, it's crazy. I grew up a Florida State fan, but I always watched Florida Gator football and Georgia Bulldog football just because I'm a Southern guy and I love football. But I grew up a Florida State person, and when my 9th grade year, Florida State was one of the first schools to offer me, followed by Clemson. And we ended up playing wide section. My 10th grade year, we played Tallahassee down at Fletcher, and I had a great game. And those guys, they offered me as a running back when I was in 9th grade, and I played defense too. So, and the next thing they came and told me I'd make a great safety. And Coach Spurrier was recruiting one of our linemen, Steve Arflin, came down to watch him, and he ended up liking me and offered me. And, he invited me to come up to Gainesville. We went up to Gainesville, and the next day I committed to Florida because in my heart I knew that was the place to be. And, just from 2 days, they showed me love, complete love like no other school has shown me. He didn't sugarcoat anything with me. He was up front. And, I just like the feel and I like the town. So I committed to Florida and I stuck with my commitment.
So talk about the change. Of course, you said Spurrier recruited you, but, Ron Zook comes in as head coach. What was your first thought? Steve Spurrier leaves and now Ron Zook is your head coach.
Well, I kind of had an idea Coach Spurrier was probably wasn't gonna be there. Even if he would have stayed my freshman year, I figured he wouldn't have been there the whole time. So I always prepared myself for him not to be there. And other coaches who tried to recruit me tried to use that as a tool. But I fell in love with the Gators, and when Coach Zook first got there, I didn't know who Coach Zook was. I was like, who is this guy? And because everybody know Coach Mike Shanahan was at one time in the running, and I was like, oh, this is about to be a great opportunity for me, coming from the I formation to be able to stay in the I formation. So it's great. But when Coach Zook got it, him and that staff, Coach Fedora, Coach Zombrecker, those guys hit it hard, and I was the first person they called when they got the job, and it was crazy. Zook first weekend back in Gainesville was my official visit weekend, so we kind of arrived at the same time. So and those guys, they honored everything Coach Spurrier said. Give me number 4, let me compete. My whole thing was not red shirting, and Coach Zook was like, Coach Spurrier's gonna give you an opportunity not the red shirt. I'm gonna give you an opportunity not the red shirt. But if you come here, your chances of getting to the NFL are great. So I stay on my commitment. I don't think it was any other school close in the running because I committed so early. So I was locked in on Florida from day one and just wanted to make the best of my opportunity in Gainesville.
Let's talk about that Zook time frame a little bit. Of course, that was your time frame. You played, and it was hard to follow a legend in Steve Spurrier. And I remember going back, and Miami comes into town and romps Florida pretty good there in that 2002 season. And what was it about Ron Zook? Later on in that season, gives Georgia their only loss of the season. So what was it like playing under Ron Zook? That career, you guys had some big wins, but some deflating losses as well. It's just like there was just that lack of consistency there with Zook. But man, he got you guys up for some big time games.
Well, I think when he first got there, some of the guys was held over from the Spurrier staff and some of the players. I mean, everybody didn't buy in at first. So, he's trying to get everybody to buy in, the juniors and the seniors. Everybody didn't buy in at first. So we lost some games we shouldn't have lost, and then we beat some teams that we normally would beat, like the Georgia, who was ranked top 2 in the nation. We got blown out by LSU my freshman year, and then my sophomore year LSU won the national championship, and we end up beating LSU. Yep. I think it was all a part of us just buying in and the players just being disciplined. I don't think we was disciplined enough as a unit to go out there and do the accomplish the things we wanted to accomplish. We knew we had the talent, and we knew we could beat any team that was on our schedule. But as far as discipline and always being accountable for ourselves and each other, we wasn't that type of program. And that's really what hurt us. We had a lot of meat guys in the locker room, and a lot of guys getting their feelings about playing time and stuff like that. So we wasn't together as a unit. But far as him as a coach, man, he's a great players coach. Kept us motivated. And I could also say everybody on our staff, sometimes they come from different conferences. They didn't know how to coach in the SEC. And just to be honest with you, and the staff and the players being accountable was a big part of the success that we didn't have. So
well, let's go to the last season there. Florida loses to Mississippi State, and the writing was on the wall there, and Ron Zook ends up getting fired. Were you surprised? You said he was a player's coach. You think that played into a part of him wanting to stay on and finish out the season?
Oh, definitely. I think our players wanted him to stay. It's kind of hard going through a coaching change after game 6 or game 5, and the players fought for him, but I think also too it was an addition for him. If he stay on and we go on the street and beat these teams that people didn't think we could beat, it's gonna give him a job, which it did. It landed him in Illinois. Yeah. And I think he went off on a high note. And at one point there was people, they were talking about, oh, we might need to keep Ron Zook, but at that time he done already made a decision. The school done made a decision. But and for us juniors and seniors, we didn't know what to expect. We didn't know who was coming in, so it was like, hey, you might as well go out there and ball. I mean, we don't know who's gonna come out, so we auditioning too. All the young guys was auditioning too, so that played a part in us going on that winning streak at the end of my junior year and winning games.
Let's go to that last game for a second. A lot of Gator fans got to rewatch that game last week. ESPNU, I believe, they reshowed. I don't know why they picked this game, but they reshowed the 2004 Florida State game where Ron Zook's last game, Bobby Bowden Field, gets renamed Ron Zook Field for the night as you guys send out Ron Zook victorious. Could you tell anything was different that last game going into that last week? Was there more in tune preparation? Was there a mindset from you guys that you just kind of alluded to? It was maybe kind of audition process, but was anything different going into that last game and you guys upsetting the Seminoles?
Well, we knew it was a rival. We knew what had happened the year before in the swamp. And, from when we play that Florida State game, we know what goes on from the Monday to Thursday in practice. All you hear is the war chant music, especially with us going to their place. The war chant music was even louder that week. So we knew we was getting ready to go play our rival. And then we knew that they was naming the field after Bobby Bowden that day. And it was like totally disrespect, We expect you to do that versus a team that you'll beat. And so we felt like they thought they could beat us. So we went out there and we just played ball, man. Everybody was talking about how good their defense was, the 2 years during that time frame and how they had all these NFL draft picks. And we just wanted to go out there and prove that we still was the Florida Gators. We had draft picks too, even though we were younger. We just wanted to go out there with a victory and just redeem ourselves from what happened the year before in the swamp.
Oh, man. Yeah, not 2003 game. That still gets a lot of Gator fans mad. So, 2004 made up for it just a little bit. So, Ciatrick, man, you came into News for Jacks one day, and we'll get into you being named one of the top 25 players. But you told us a story back there in the sports department that I wanted everybody definitely to hear. So Ron Zook gets fired, Urban Meyer gets hired, and you have a decision to make. So of course you're going to talk to the new head coach. Urban Meyer gets hired. What was the conversation like with him, to make your decision whether to stay at Florida or go to the NFL? So I remember you mentioned that you had one-on-one conversation with him in his office, and I tell you what, man, it was good that he was straight up with you. So give our listeners that story.
Well, when he came, I was getting calls from Coach Urban Meyer all type of times at night, and one night he ended up calling me up to the office, and we ended up talking, and he told me, he was like, right now you're the biggest recruit that we're trying to go after. We're trying to keep you, and I was like, yeah, I feel you. And he was just being honest with me. He was like, but honestly, I don't care about none of y'all. It's all about you staying and helping this team win games, because winning games is how my family eat, and my family got to eat. So, when he said that, it kind of made my decision right there, going from a coach who cared about the players, and coach who told me, not knowing me that long, that he really didn't care. All he cared about was winning and losing. So, and that played a big part on me, because, I'm always one of those person. I've been around people who care about me in life in general. I know, guys that play for Urban Meyer got a different outlook on them. And, he do got a relationship with a couple guys. It was just at that time frame, during that conversation, I felt it was best for me to go after he said that. And, I talked to Coach Mullen on his staff. There's a couple great people on his staff that I have a relationship with. But, in that moment, it was time for me to leave. And, after that, I kind of had an idea, no matter what the success he had, that he wasn't going to be in Gainesville long, just because when you have that type of attitude, you kind of have an idea what that person is going to be about. So.
There was another part of that story. I remember you telling me, like, you were, of course, one of the SEC's leading returning running backs, stat-wise and all that stuff. And he basically admitted to you, that you weren't going to you better get used to not getting the ball as much.
Yeah, and that was that. And I asked him, I was like, how much am I going to get the ball? And he was like, hey, So what you just rushed for this past season? Like 1,300? I was like, yeah, I just led the SEC in rushing. Well, you ain't gonna lead the SEC in rushing next year. I was like, oh yeah, man, it's time to go. It's time to take off. I can't go from 1,300 yards down to 800, 700 yards, But I knew what type of offense he had. The jet sweep, and he was bringing that about, and I was like, man, I can't play in this offense. I can't. I gotta go while I'm hot right now. I just led the SEC in rushing over Cadillac Williams, Ronnie Brown, Arian Foster, guys like that. It was time for me to move on.
So let's fast forward a couple years a bit. We'll get into your NFL draft. All the NFL drafts coming up. Definitely want to pick your brain about that. But we'll stick with a lot of your teammates here. We just kind of mentioned that 2004 season, and many Gator fans getting to watch that Florida State game. And man, you could go and just see so many former teammates that went on to win a national championship in 2006. You got to play with so many of those guys. You had Chris Lee, Dallas Baker, Andre Caldwell, Brandon Seiler, Jamal Cornelius, Earl Everett, Reggie Lewis, Marcus Thomas, Tate Casey, Steve Rissler, Stephen Harris, Ray McDonald. And those guys were making plays in 2004 when as young guys, when you were part of the team. What was it like seeing those guys go on and win a national championship?
Oh, it was great. All those guys you just named was my signing class, and it was great to see those guys. Me and Randy Hand was the only freshman coming out that didn't red shirt, so we was able to get on the field early, and those guys red shirted and they were putting in the work. And they worked hard for years. So when I seen those guys go out there and win that national championship, it made my day. We was on the road, and it was crazy because Antoine Whitfield was a teammate of mine in Minnesota, and he was an Ohio State guy. He was talking trash to me, and he was like, hey, we got to make a deal. And I'm like, man, I'm not a deal type of guy, but it's my Gators, man. I play with these boys. Let's make this deal. And he called me as soon as they scored that opening kickoff, and I was like, all right, now. So it's 4 quarters. It was just big to seeing guys, Reggie Lewis and Kenneth Tukes and Gavin Dickey. Those are my roommates. So it was glad to see those guys just go out there and enjoy themselves, seeing the Brian Crumbs and just all the guys that Deshaun Wynn, the guys that I was close to and close to this day, to go out there and win a national championship. Kyle Jackson, who I call my little brother, just excited to see those guys accomplish a ring on a big stage. And, from going from the middle of the SEC back to the top was major. And they put our program right back on the map and back where the Gator Nation's supposed to be.
Right, and that team, much like your last year, led by Chris Leak, and you didn't see many true freshmen come in as you do now at the quarterback position. And in 2003, as a freshman, helps Florida, as you mentioned, with a big win over eventual national champion LSU in Baton Rouge. In that game, he finds you for your first career touchdown reception. In that game, he comes in as this highly touted recruit. But did you see him having the success? And was there a worry about playing with a true freshman quarterback back then?
Oh, no, not at all. When Chris was in his senior year of high school, people don't know, but Chris used to come down to practice in the spring before he arrived on campus. He'll come down and we'll be on the field and he'll stand off to the back and we was running drills and running plays, and he'll be back doing the same drop as the quarterback. So just trying to get ahead and understand what was going on before he even came there as a regular student, as a full-time student. So he was just doing stuff on his own, him and his dad just driving down all the time. And so when he came to campus, it didn't surprise us at all that after game 2 or 3 that he was stepping in to be the guy. Like, cause he prepared himself for that time just from the year or 2 ahead of time. So, it wasn't a surprise. I mean, we knew the guy had a pretty ball. We knew the guy loved football. So by him coming in as a true freshman, we knew he could lead our team.
Still the prettiest spiral we've ever seen.
Yes.
Ciatrick, take us, like I said, NFL draft's coming up this week, and take us back a bit. You said you decided to leave Florida early after leading the SEC in rushing. What was a lot of the feedback you were getting from NFL teams, and take us back to the day you were drafted, and being able to kind of say, of course your career wasn't done, but you had made it to one more rung in the ladder for your career.
Oh yes, I ended up getting a late the first round to fourth round grade when I came out, and I had my kids, and everybody that played with me knew what my number one goal was, and that was to get to the NFL to support my kids. So, when I got my grade and my feedback back, met with a couple of agents at UF and went with Joe Siegel. And, right after what people don't know is the surprise, right after the bowl game, you fly out to go train wherever you're going to train for the combine. And I went to Kenner, Louisiana, to train with Tom Shaw, who's now Walt Disney, training on Disney Wild World of Sports. So I went down there and trained with him for a few months, and just prepared myself. And leading up to the draft, my grade never changed. Came out with a loaded backfield with Cedric Benson, Ronnie Brown, and Eric Shelton. I think my last running back draft class was the biggest that they had in some years. So just preparing for that, and just going through all the interviews, the car signing, it was major because, you get money that you don't even expect to get that can help out in certain type of ways. But for me, it's about football and my kids. And when I got drafted by Minnesota, it was a blessing. I know I didn't get called on the first day, but, here between first and fourth, that's all. I just wanted to get called because, 2% get drafted. And I know how tough it was, and I knew the running back class I was coming out with, and gracefully, Mike Tice gave me an opportunity going as a rookie, score some touchdowns. Then I went through a coaching change who wanted to bring his own system in. So, the NFL is about business. It's not always about talent. I tell people that all the time. It's about who like you for their scheme at that time. And I got a chance to play 2 years in Minnesota, got a chance to go to Canada, got a chance to even join the Jack Smith Jaguars training camp. So, my whole career, and definitely my pro career, was a blessing. I mean, I got to do what many wish they could do, a few do. So I don't regret none of my decisions, and I respect all my coaches and everything about football.
More memorable, playing in Death Valley, Baton Rouge, or playing in Lambeau Field?
Whew. I have to say playing. I scored a touchdown in Lambeau Field, but I have to say Death Valley. Nothing's better than Death Valley when you pull up to the stadium and the students and fans rocking your bus side to side and they're doing all that type stuff, and you get off and then they put the tiger cage right by the visitor locker room and try to scare you a little bit, and the stadium rocking. Man, I have to say LSU, but Green Bay, they have their thing where they moon you and moon your bus and all that. It's crazy because when you're younger, you didn't understand what Randy Moss was doing when he scored that touchdown, and then you was like, oh, he's mocking the Green Bay fans. So, but I have to say, Baton Rouge all day long. It's hard to top anything to go on in that SEC.
Absolutely. Ciatrick Fason, former Gator running back, joining us here on Gators Breakdown. Just a few more thoughts there from him. Ciatrick, how much are you around the Gators program now? Of course, Dan Mullen comes in, and you mentioned your relationship you had with him when he was hired along with Urban Meyer. How much are you around the program now?
I try to get back during the summer. I go back once every summer, get back, talk to the guys there, Vernell and Keywan's there. And sometimes they reach out and ask for you to talk to the young guys. I had a chance to talk to Iverson Clements last year. I was pulled away because of my youth athletic league, because we play on Saturdays. But me and my wife had made it where we put people in place on Saturdays, and so we could start getting out a little bit more, and I could show my face. Coach Mullen and that staff, they welcome the former Gators back with open arms, and I could say that's. We had some coaches over the years that didn't do that. Urban Meyer always did it, but the guys that came after him didn't always do that. But as soon as Mullen came down, he was doing it. But, like I said, Coach Mullen, even when he was at Mississippi State, he'll offer me to come there. Hey, you can show up at Mississippi State if you want to, C4. So, I love the program. I love, even though I don't get back, I still talk to those players who came after me, the Ahmad Blacks, the major writing guys, the Kyle Jacksons. I still talk to those younger guys, and we have our laughs, and we do it. We say a lot of things. I don't know. The other day, Ahmad Black posted a picture from the Florida State game with my stats on it. It was like, ooh. So they show love, man, and. Anytime I could get back now, I try to get back, especially with this staff in place and these young guys, man, because sometimes they need to hear a different voice and to see how somebody made it, or just get a boost of confidence in themselves. So I try to get back now and get back more than I have before, and make time for that. So.
What have you seen from Dan Mullen in his first 2 years? Of course, 10 wins in year one, 11 wins in year two, coming after Jim McElwain, who, that last year had ran the program into the ground. And so a lot of early success in these first 2 years under Dan Mullen. He's made Florida football fun again.
Man, yeah, I always said, man, even when he was at Mississippi State, I was like, man, we need to hire Coach Mullen. Coach Mullen's energetic, and he wants to be in Gainesville. And when a guy wants to be in Gainesville, he's trying to do everything he can to make the fans proud. He's trying to win games, and he want to make his own mark. Everybody always say he's the guy that was on Urban Meyer staff, that was the offensive coordinator. But sometimes when you take over that head role, you want to make your own mark and put your own legacy on it. And he's starting to do that so far. And I think the years to come are going to be special with Coach Mullen. He got the players want to play for him, and he's outgoing. He knows how to recruit, and he knows how to get the players to play, and he knows how to reach out to the former Gators. And I think, man, the sky's the limit for Coach Mullen. I think he could go down as one of our great coaches, and I think he's going to win a few championships. And as long as he can keep that energy and have the players playing for him, man, he's going to be there for a long time.
So I met you a couple months ago, as I said earlier. You came to WJXT, and Justin Barney had released an article where we named you, part of the News for Jacks All-25 team. It's a team that consists of the top 25 players in the Jacksonville area the last 25 years. So names: Tim Tebow, Lito Shepherd, Derrick Henry, C.J. Spiller, Laramie Tunsil, Leon Washington, D. Webb. I mean, there was just some big names. Not only big names in the Jacksonville area, but you're put on that list because those guys went on to do great things also in college football. And man, you have to look at that name or take a look at that list there and just say, man, it's great to be named amongst those high profile names there.
Oh, definitely. Anytime a list comes out, I'm a sports fanatic, so it don't matter what type of list it is. But when you get to see a list and you're up there with great players and players who done did it at a high level, players who was ranked nationally, and players who done made it to the NFL and did some great things in the NFL, and just being on that list, man, it just shows you how much shows you how much work you got to put in as a person and stay on the right track. And even with just seeing like guys like Lito Shepherd and guys who's played in the Super Bowl and all the players that came through Jacksonville, and for me to make that list, was major. And my kids, they was young and didn't ever really see me play besides the replays that they see come on now. But when I tell them about hard work, and even the kids I coach and mentor, when I tell them about hard work and be dedicated to your craft and stay on the straight and narrow, sometimes it could go in go in one ear and out the other, bro. When they see it and when they see it on the newspaper, when they see it on TV, like, oh, Coach C really was that dude. You know, we want to be like him. Like I got my running back right now, Miles Montgomery, been playing for me since he was 8 years old, and now he's committed to Cincinnati. And he ended up seeing some things, and he changed his Twitter profile picture and put me on there, you know, because he looks up to me. And you know, just by being on those lists and letting those younger guys see the dedication you got to put in, that's what do it for me. So
yeah, going in part of that list, you know, Leon Washington, a local guy, and you played games against, and also I had a Twitter follower, Branson Smith, send in. He goes, he wanted me to ask you about going up against Billy Latsko, who's your former teammate at Florida. Y'all were there a lot at the same time, but you know, you guys got to play against each other when he was at Gainesville Buchholz, and he was he played linebacker, and you know, going against you as a running back at Fletcher. Talk about that. If you could go back and talk about that matchup a bit, if you for you know the memory you have of that game.
Oh yeah, you know, it was crazy. I think Buchholz came in ranked number 1 in the state that game. It was our senior year. We was undefeated going into that game, and we was just about to play. No, we had just lost one game the first coast, and we was going in that game, you know, like ranked number 11th or something in the state in the class, and we was going against them and Billy Latsko. They had all these little short linebackers, but they could play. And they was like, man, I think they got a kid going to Florida. And I was like, really? And it ended up being Billy Latsko, man. You know, they stacked that box. The guy could hit. They was bringing it, man. They had 10 in a box. They wasn't even worried about us passing. So they ended up beating us like 14-6 or something, 14-0 or something like that. And it was crazy. You know, I became a fan of Billy Latsko as a high school player. Me and him, you know, kind of hit it off. So when he came to Florida, and I was like, hey, man, what's your name? He was like, Billy Latsko. I was like, oh, the linebacker, Buchholz, man. And he was like, yeah, he had a lot of 1AA offers at the time. And he was like, man, I was just like, hey, I'm going to give it a shot at Florida. And he went there as a linebacker. And then I talked him in, hey, man, you might need to come over and play fullback, man. You know, we need a fullback. You're not afraid to hit. You're the right body type. You're athletic. So he moved to fullback, and, you know, me and Billy had a great relationship, man. I could tell him, hey, Billy, that the outside linebacker, keep doing this. If you can, kick him or turn him, and I'll run off you. So our relationship was great, man. And, you know, I love Billy Latsko, and I was glad he got the opportunity with the Carolina Panthers. Like I said, you know, any guy I play with, I try to follow. So, and I think, you know, Billy's one of the best linebackers one of the best fullbacks I ever played with at any level. And so, you know, I have to say, man, Billy was everything, man, and just a great person, man.
And so, Ciatrick, with what you're doing now, and in the world of, you know, being around younger kids and all that, man, just how different is the world of recruiting right now from when you were getting recruited to now? As you said, you're trying to lead these guys along the way, and you know, being recruited is part of it, and it's so much more intense now. And there's the social media world out there kind of adds to that. What are you telling these kids about the recruiting world, and you know how to handle themselves now with kind of constant contact at all times now?
Yeah, you know, you gotta tell them, first of all, like you said, social media, man. You gotta tell them, be careful what they put on social media. Everybody's watching everything they do, even when they don't think they're watching. They're watching. Tell them how to act, and try to teach them how to talk. It goes a long ways these days, and I try to tell the kids, you know, a lot of scouts like to throw offers out these days. Back when we was in school, the only offers you was getting, they was committable offers. Now scouts offer 180 kids in the same area, knowing they only got 20 scholarships. So I try to, give advice, man. Look, when you talk to these coaches, make sure see if that. If not, be careful with it, because a kid will be committed to one school, and they might get an offer by Arizona State, and it's non-committable, but they don't know it, and they done decommitted from the school they was committed to, and now they're stuck in a win. So I try to give advice, and just me having connections with a lot of college coaches because they either recruited me or I played for them or played with them. So I try to pick their brains and see what they think about certain kids, and at the same time, be able to go back and relay information to the players and just so they're in the best situation as possible, no matter what it is. And it's very different. A lot of kids like offers for likes. Sometimes they chasing the Power 5 schools, where when we was growing up in our area, it's all about going to the school that fits you and that gives you the best opportunity. Some kids don't go to schools to give them a best opportunity. They go just because it's the bigger name school at the moment. So, I try to just give kids the real and let them know it's not always about the bigger name school. It's about what fits you and where you're going to be happy for the next 4 or 5 years. I'm doing it with my son. He's getting recruited for basketball, one of the top basketball players in the city of Jacksonville. And I'm going through the same thing with him, man. It's not about the bigger name school. And, basketball is very different. D1 is hard, the basketball. And he's lucky to have D1 schools on him. So, I just want to preach to him that it don't matter about the bigger name school. Go where it fits you the best.
Awesome input there. Ciatrick, man, I can't thank you enough. Great conversation here. I hope our listeners got a lot out of it, and some things that maybe they didn't know along the way. But I can't thank you enough for joining me here on Gators Breakdown.
Thank you for having me.
Nah, that's Ciatrick Fason, Gator great running back. Man, that was a lot of fun getting to talk with Ciatrick Fason, reliving some of those great memories there. The Urban Meyer thing kind of surprised me a bit. Didn't really know that's how the conversation went. I hope you guys, I hope that surprised you out there as much as it did me there. So that was one of the biggest takeaways there, I think, and just his recruitment as well, growing up a FSU fan. And ended up a Gator great as well at running back. And I wish the team could have had some more success there with Ciatrick Fason, of course. But as we talked about, a lot of those guys he played with end up and going on and winning a national championship in 2006. So, glad a lot of those guys from that time of Zook eventually found some success. But I wish Ciatrick Fason would have been one of those. Remember, this was just only going to be the first episode this week here. The guys at SI Sports Illustrated All Gators, Zach Goodall, Demetrius Harvey will join me for an NFL draft preview, as well as we look at some of these Gators that are going to be getting their name called this coming up weekend for the NFL draft. So that'll do it for this episode of Gators Breakdown. I am the host of Gators Breakdown, David Waters. You can find me on Twitter at GatorDave_SEC. Guys and girls out there, thanks for listening to this episode of Gators Breakdown.